welcome back to a brand new episode of NH Unscripted. Yeah, you're going to begin to think this is some enchanted evening. I am your Jay and the Americans like host, Ray Dudley, and we are coming to you from the Taj Mahal-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. My goodness, it's cavernous in here. Got my Nehru jacket on, got my bell-bottom pants, my platform shoes. Your job is to kick back on that waterbed. Don't forget to keep the heater on it. Been there, done that. They get cold quick. Get your lava lamp going. Fire up the incense. You are going to just want to sit back and enjoy this one today. We're coming to you 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios, 101.9 FM for the beautiful folks in Manchester. Gosh, we love you folks down there and appreciate you so much. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. I will give you some tips and little insight on what's happening out there a little later in the program. Right now, I need to thank our sponsor. The show sponsor here is the law offices of Shaheen and Gordon. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate their backing of the program. I did happen to see the other day, and I wanted to mention it. They recently had an attorney. Her name is Emma Sisti. She was recently inducted into the as a fellow of the New Hampshire Bar Foundation. She joins 3 other attorneys there who are existing fellows. Kathy Green, Francis Murphy, Lindsay Robinson. I am telling you, the law offices of Shaheen Gordon, their website, get your pencils out because you're going to want to put it on your fridge, is ShaheenGordon.com. Their phone number is 603-614-5560 because everyone, repeat with me, you all know it, everyone should know a good attorney. Yes, I'm telling you, you walk this terra firma long enough, you or someone you know is going to need one. And won't you be the hit of the barbecue when you say, oh, I've got that on my fridge out there. Let me run that there and get you that number. ShaheenGordon.com is their website. And one more time, 603-614-5560. Thank you so much to them. I have been looking forward to this next interview for, a couple of weeks now. In-house today, and this is a first for me, is Marek Bennett. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Marek, you are considered I know that you're a cartoonist. Are you a cartoonist first?
I guess so. I introduced myself as a cartoonist, and then I say my name, yeah.
So your cartoons are different. They're very unique. Talk a little bit about all of that, and then we'll get into your background and that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, I think what makes them unique maybe is my background. That's true for all artists, right? We all come from different backgrounds and we have different styles. And I'm always, as I draw my stories, as I draw my pictures, I'm always thinking of how would I draw this as like a 4 or 5-year-old? What's the fastest way to get this idea down on the page without, overthinking it? I think a lot about not overthinking it. So I draw a lot of stick figures. I draw a lot of animals with little ... line smiley faces or something. Whatever gets the idea down. Because so cool. Once you start drawing, the ideas come faster and faster, and the challenge is keeping up with it, right? Yeah,
I'll take your word for that. Before we go too far, why don't you give us a URL so if folks want to go out to your website while we're chatting about it, they can follow along?
Sure, I just use my name, MarekBennett.com, MarekBennett.com.
And it comes right up. So let's back up a little bit. What is your background, and how did you decide cartoons or the history? How did you veer into that stream?
I guess when I grew up, it was the late 1970s, early 1880s.
Welcome to my world.
Sorry, early 1980s. Little slip there. And when I'd say to my mom, I'm bored. And she'd say, don't tell me you're bored. Go find something to do,
Yeah, Mom needs to throw me out of the house. Well, go outside and play.
Go outside, yeah. And so I'd go outside and play. Or sometimes, if there's blank paper, we'd pick up some blank paper, my brother and I or my friends and I, and we'd be like, well, what should we draw? And then I just, even from a really young age, before I could read or write, I was really captivated by that idea that when you have a blank piece of paper and a pen, anything could happen on that paper. You just have to figure out how. And that's really engrossing. We would spend all afternoon just like figuring out, how do you make a pirate ship on this piece of paper? How do you make a Star Wars battle? How do you make a World War II fleet of aircraft? We just how do you build giant robots? I mean, I had certain interests, I guess.
Was there artistry in your family history, or you just simply decided you were going to draw?
It must have been, it probably was my dad sitting me down when I was little. I'd sit on his lap and he'd say, well, what should we draw? And I'd pick my favorite Star Wars spaceship, and he'd draw it on the paper somehow. We'd figure out what it looked like and how to draw it. And I think just having an adult who took the time to show me, oh, here's how you can create something that it's not there now, but with a little bit of work and thinking and drawing, definitely making marks on the paper, you can create something that wasn't there a minute ago. And that's magic.
Dude, that's very insightful. Something that wasn't there a minute ago.
That's real magic, right?
Oh, I like that. I'm going to steal that.
And it's not an illusion, because, if you draw a scene that has an emotional impact, like draw a smiley face, people look at it and they smile when they recognize, most of the time in our days, you could walk by a drawing of smiley face and we're kind of conditioned to ignore it. But if you somehow put something of yourself into that picture and make that smiley face say something, or give it a little twist, like give it googly eyes or something, everybody who looks at it will have a reaction to that and smile.
Your drawings fascinate me in their simplicity. You're not like, who's the guy on PBS with the big hair and the...
Bob Ross?
Yeah. You are on the other end of that spectrum.
Oh, wow.
Well, because his are so involved, and it's got all this business going on. Yours immediately attract the eye because of their simplicity. They're black and white. I don't know. Are they all black and white through all your books and everything?
I do color too, but most of my work starts in black and white at least. Yeah.
And they're just... You can't help but be drawn to them. I mean, there's something about the simplicity of it. Maybe it is the fact that it looks like a young child may have drawn them. And I'm not hammering it. I mean, that's a compliment.
That is.
And I can't help. I told you, Andrew Pernard, a friend of ours, handed me some of your, I'm going to call them tracks for now, but they're like a track kind of thing. They're short, little, abbreviated stories.
We call them mini comics.
Yeah. You put it in your pocket, and I kept going back to them. There's something about them that just drew me to them, and I just sat there looking at them. The story, and forgive me for saying this, it wasn't the story that drew me, even though it had a beautiful story to it, and we'll get into some of that in a minute, but there was just something that I just wanted to sit and kind of stare at it. We live in a world where you're bombarded with information, and it's verbal, it's visual. It just hammers you all day long. You look at yours and you're like, oh, I can park here for a second and kind of rest on this. So was that your intention all along? Were you at one point, did you ever wrestle with like, oh, this is too simple, I gotta do something a little bit more elaborate here?
Yeah, sometimes I'll visit an art classroom where they'll have a rule like you have to fill up the paper, or you have to you have to keep drawing the whole class or something, keep adding details, and that's a well-meaning rule, of course. It's like it's meant to stretch us and push us to do something more. But the main lesson of cartooning, I think, and that's something that every kindergartner knows, is if you can just get the idea down and move on, find another piece of paper, move on, don't overdraw it. I think that the way I think what I tell people is cartooning is drawing to get at the heart of the main idea, to not just the main idea, but the heart of it, right? To get right down to where the life is in the picture. And you don't want to, in order to do that, you don't want to add too much. I mean, I'm already saying, a couple hundred words about this, but if you draw a picture to show people that, when you draw a little stick figure, people look at it and they say, oh, it's a person. The moment I add like a hat or a beard or glasses, it becomes somebody else. It becomes a specific person. But if I can get the detail level just right, people will see a character, but they'll also see like a general, like maybe me, maybe you, and there's this shared existence that we all have. And cartoons are kind of that intersection of all of us, that shared existence. I guess philosophers probably have lots of terms for this, right? Like a platonic idea or something. an ideal.
I think one of the things I like about it is the simplicity of it. I find very inviting. Maybe that's what it is. You know, you have people, all right, we got to take a break here in a second, but you know, you have people who go to a museum and they stare at these like incredibly intricate paintings and they get buried in them, right? All right, we're going to finish this in just a second.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah, all right. Oh, my friends, yeah, we're kind of like day tripping here. That makes me your Beatles-like host, Ray Dudley, and we are coming to you from the YMCA-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. I can smell the pool chlorine all the way over here. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your Sony Walkmans. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. MarekBennett.com is the URL we're referencing today. It's all about some cartoons. We will be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted, where you will find out what becomes of the brokenhearted. I'm your Jimmy Ruffin-like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the Car 54-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios, 101.9 FM for the beautiful, beautiful souls in Manchester. We are talking with Marek Bennett. I am captivated. Simplicity captivates me. Maybe that's an easy way to put it. But, you know, I was stating before, it's the simplicity. There's something here that's so inviting. It makes my mind automatically think, you know, I don't have to struggle here to understand this story. There's something very, I don't want to say primal. I don't want to say childlike, but there's something that takes me back, and I'm like, okay, you know, I want to turn a page here. I want to see where this goes.
Oh, great.
You know, so let's talk a little bit about the theme and how you get into the history that you're doing. I mean, you could have gone anywhere with this. You could have done your favorite TV show for all anybody cares. You know, but you've chosen a certain road here, a path. How did you decide that was the way to go?
Boy, you could take it, like we started, you could take it all the way back to where you started, your background, things you did.
Was the history in your background? Was that a topic a lot around the kitchen table there?
I think what you're describing, that inviting nature of cartooning, where you look at it and you're like, oh, that looks inviting. I want to look at that. That's calming. That has maybe some space in it, or it just invites me into imagining this picture. When you make a drawing like that, everybody's probably had this feeling, but it might not have been since you were in kindergarten. You make a drawing, and then something happens next in your imagination, and you could draw the next thing, and you can draw the next thing. So starting to think of art that way, as sequential, as here's an image, and now I turn the page and I draw the next piece, and then I turn the page and I draw the next piece, that draws you into story. Because that's what you're doing. You're constructing a story moment by moment. Yeah. And I got into that. Boy, you just reminded me by asking, like, where does this come from? Suddenly I time traveled back to when I was a tiny little kid. I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. And they used to make these little movie toys for movies that came out. I remember those, yeah. That you'd turn a little reel, you'd put your eye to the viewer, and you'd see a movie going, and you put a little cartridge in, and it would play a movie on a tape. And you could turn it slowly, click by click, frame by frame, and watch the movie develop. And you'd watch people moving frame by frame. So I would never just roll at movie speed. I would click that little movie viewer frame by frame. And then I'd go to my sketchbook and I'd draw frame by frame something happening. And if you're going to draw frame by frame like 10 or 12 pictures, it's going to take forever if you do it in a detailed way.
Yes.
So that, like, just the practical aspect of it. All right, I want to draw like a 10-step story, and I don't know, mom's going to make us go to bed soon, so I have to work fast. Well, you're probably going to do something that strips out all the details. You have to do something that strips out unnecessary details and gets to the heart of the story. Yeah. So partly, like, that cartooning style, I think, comes to me by trying to do stories and having limited time. We all have limited time on this earth,
Yeah.
Let's get to the heart of the story. And it took me about 35, 40 years of working at that to come around to saying.
I noticed you said years and not like minutes to say, it took me 45 minutes to figure it out. It took me 45 years.
No, that's what I tell people. If you want to try cartooning, don't wait. You don't need to, go get a doctorate in it or anything. Just pick up a napkin or a sticky note, draw a smiley face, draw a frowny face, however you're feeling that day. Start getting in touch with the stories that you have to tell.
I can easily, and I hope, again, you don't find this offensive. I hope you appreciate it. I grew up with those old flip books, where it'd be like you were saying, one thing, an arm movement or a finger or something, as you flip through, and you'd have like 30 pages, and it would tell a little story. And you get them in a Cracker Jack box or something back in those days.
Right.
I can easily see all of your stuff being that way. Do people ever say that to you, or do you have a flip book, or are your books based kind of like flip books?
This could be a Cracker Jack's flip book. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, nice compliment, Ray. Thanks.
One of the best compliments I feel one of the best compliments I can get is that cliche, oh, my kid could do this. Because I'm always trying to draw that way. I'm trying to draw in a way.
Yeah.
Not, and I don't mean a naive, unpracticed way. I want to draw in a very deliberate way, but I want it to sort of say, oh, the other best compliment I get is people look at it and they say, oh, you draw comics. Well, I can't draw a thing. And then I show them a page or two of the book and they're like, oh, well, I could draw that. And they mean it sort of dismissively out of surprise. They don't mean to say it, but I tell them that's the best compliment because I want the comics to say, hey, you could do this. In fact, you probably have some blank paper nearby. Try it out yourself.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that about children looking almost childlike. One of the things as a grown-up or as a parent, when a child brings a drawing to you, you embrace it. You immediately are so fond of what has the effort that has gone into it. Then it's the simplicity of the child. Has a little son and a little mom with a triangle dress, that kind of thing.
Right.
This has the same affinity to it. When you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember things like this. I remember that a child, my daughter or my son, when they were young, they would draw like this. And I think as an adult, you're automatically drawn to that. You're pulled into that kind of a scenario. It's something DNA-ish about seeing a childlike way of looking at the world. That automatically it makes you proud as a parent. I don't even know how to describe it, but your stuff has that love to it. It has that. A child puts that effort in, and by the time they get it to you, it is just a stick figure, but they've spent hours pouring their little heart and their little mind into it, and you're like so appreciative of it. And yours, the simplicity of this, is so gorgeous. It's it makes me want to just keep going through your website and seeing. You just you don't want to leave it,
Oh, thank you. That's. I mean, isn't it amazing that childlike could become an epithet or a dismissal? And if you walk through the museum and you look at the art on the walls and you say, oh, that's childlike. A lot of people mean that as a dismissal, right?
Yeah.
And that spirit of, hey, I made this for you. No kid has ever come to me and said, hey, I made this for you. You can have it for $1. Unless maybe upper elementary, middle school, where they're starting to think, oh, I got to make a living somehow, and I got to start a business on this. And sometimes they do want to sell their comics, and that's great too. I sell my books because I always tell them, I make these because I care about the stories that I'm working with, and we'll get to that in a minute, right? The history behind it, and I make them because I care about my readers. And when I was your age, or when I'm my age, this is the story I want to be in the world. I want to see this in the world. So this is the story I make. And if I can make free copies of it, I give those away. And if I have to pay to make copies, then it makes sense. I have to ask people to support that. And if you don't have 50 cents or $1 for a mini comic, here, take it anyways, because you need some comics in your life then, right? And I reached a point like 15 years ago where I stopped. I would put my mini comics out at conventions, And I just stopped asking for money for them because it felt silly to say like, oh, this one's $1, this one's $2. I've worked my whole life to make this comic. Why would I not give it to you if you didn't have $1? Like, that's perverse.
Oh, man, that's a great heart.
If you don't have $1, here, take it,
Yeah.
And the books are different because the books are bigger. They're more expensive to print.
Bigger is an understatement. Those things are huge.
Yeah, you're working at a different scale.
That's War and Peace right there.
You're doing a 500, a
In stick
500
figures.
page graphic novel. Right, yeah. Oh, I'll put that on the back cover. I like that. It very much is. You're showing, but you know what the cool thing is? You said a minute ago, or 11 or 12 minutes ago, you said you like to look at this artwork and you feel like you can just calm down and look at it for a while. And you're inhabiting the image, right? You're putting yourself into it and putting some of your life force into that image. It's your attention. And when you're doing that, like I can do a 500-page graphic novel and readers come back and they'll read it over and over again. And each time they're inhabiting that moment, that image, and they're living it and they're getting something new from it. Because each time you come to read it, you're a little different. You've grown. You've learned.
Wonderful point. Wonderful point.
So you don't, like War and Peace, you probably aren't going to read it successively. You're gonna read it once every 10 years.
Yeah.
These you can read over and over. Graphic novels in general.
Yeah.
And really live them.
As usual, we are going to run out of time. We're halfway through the show.
Time is the challenge.
And I have not even gotten halfway through the compliments I wanted to give you.
We'll do the rest in stick figures.
Yeah. You are listening to NH Unscripted, kind of your last train to Clarksville. I am your monkeys-like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from deep within the bunkers of the WKXL studios in Concord. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. Marek Bennett is in the house, and I am fascinated. We will be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted. Tell me you're not happy you're out of bed today. We are asking to give us just one look. I am your Doris Troy-like host, Ray Dudley, and we are coming to you from the spa-like conditions of the WKXL studios in Concord. Give me a massage later. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios. I hate to say it, but the poor kids get the 8 transistors. We get the 16. 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. We are talking about drawing and cartoons. And very specifically, Marek Bennett is in the house. MarekBennett.com is his URL, his website. Please go out there. Please go out while you're listening to this and follow along. It's captivating. In many ways. It's captivating in simplicity. It's captivating in its not simplicity. It walks that fine line. It's tremendous. Marek, the history. Well, how did you get into doing history as opposed to maybe, I don't know, talking about space or something?
Yeah, I started out as a kid drawing a lot of exploding spaceships, and then I got interested in prehistoric monsters and dinosaurs and World War II airplanes and boats. I was just anything that roared or exploded. I think I was fascinated by, but many years down the road, I got into doing autobiographical comics. Just the challenge of what happened to you today. How do you capture that on the page? Or not capture, that's so constricting. Like, how do you suggest that on the page to a reader and share something of your experience, right? Mm-hmm. And even to the point of, I started doing 24-hour comics, where you take 24 hours to draw a 24-page comic. And whatever happens in that time period.
Concept.
It's an amazing challenge. It's like a marathon of cartooning.
Huh.
And it's okay to try it and only do fewer than 24 pages, but I mean, there's no governing body. It's not going to get graded or anything.
Yeah.
It's an experience for you to try. And that got me into just drawing what happened to me day to day. And I started doing travel sketchbooks where you go someplace interesting and you draw about your adventures there. And usually for me, that's like learning language, learning local history, hearing stories from people and thinking, oh, I want to try to draw that story. And I did a few projects like that. And I came back to New Hampshire and I thought, why don't I do that here in New Hampshire where I live? Like, why don't I know the history of this specific piece of land, or that house over there, or that stone wall? And I started doing that. I did a series for a couple years called Live Free and Draw.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever town I visited in New Hampshire, I'd learn a little story about the history, and then I'd draw a little mini comic, sometimes 1 page, sometimes 8 pages. And I learned, wow, it's kind of interesting to go to the local historical society and say, do you have anything on... I got interested in the Civil War. So I went to the local Henniker Historical Society, and I just asked them, what do you have from the Civil War? And they got down all these boxes of
Oh my
papers.
God, you struck gold.
Yeah, and that's the challenge with life in general. Like, it's a fire hose of stories coming at us.
Yeah.
And if you want to focus on something, how do you select what to focus on? For me, it was a little 30-page diary that fell out of a box, and I got interested in it. I read the first paragraph, and I said, oh, this thing, I haven't even read the whole thing, but I can tell this guy, Freeman Colby was his name. He wrote a diary about his adventures in the Civil War. And I could tell he had a story to tell, and he had a sense of humor, and he had a sense of sort of sarcasm, and he had adventures to relate. So I thought, well, I'm going to be clever about this. I'm going to draw one of those little 8-page mini comics.
Yeah.
And that's going to get everybody interested, and they're all going to go to the Historical Society and read this 30-page typed
I bet it
manuscript.
happened just like that.
Sort of. I did the first mini comic, and it basically establishes Freeman Colby was a teacher, and I'm a teacher too. So I had this connection. I was like, wow, he's a young teacher. He was a substitute teacher, and he gets sent into the roughest schools in Henniker. There were 13 schools in our town in the 1860s. And so he was so tired by the time the Civil War came around, he was so tired of physically fighting with students.
What?
That he says in his diary, I was looking for some opening that promised better returns. He needed a more relaxing job. Right?
Well, how lucky for him, the Civil War just comes along.
The U.S. Army is recruiting, right? And that's what hooked me. By page 6 of volume 1, it wasn't volume 1 then. It was just page 6 of whatever I'm drawing. By page 6, I was like, this guy's great. I love this character. And it turned out people didn't say, how can I read his diary? I've never found another person ever who's read the diary. Even in the Historical Society, people have read pieces of it, but, it sits on a shelf and it gathers dust. So much of this stuff does. And so people would ask, like, oh, when does the next one come out? So I did a second mini comic, and then I did a third. And then like a year later, I realized, oh, I'll do a short graphic novella that collects the most interesting parts of this diary. Mm-hmm. And then about 2 or 3 years later, I realized, actually, this is kind of a full-scale book.
You have almost an encyclopedia there, a set of the old Encyclopedia Britannicas coming from my house.
Well, after 4 years, I had about 350 pages drawn.
Wow.
So my rule of thumb is if I can draw a page a day, it keeps going. If I take a day off, then somewhere down the line I've got to do 2 pages in a day.
You opened up a rabbit hole. I won't go down there yet. Oh, we got so much work. Go ahead, though.
Yeah. So but after 4 years I had 350 pages. So there's it averages out to every few days I'd finish a page. And that's partly why, like we said, that's why I draw in stick figures. There's a couple reasons though. And the whole time I was working on these books, I was educating myself about the history, because I came to it not as I studied math and music in college. So I came to it not as a historian, but as someone who I wanted to figure it out. And how do I know what was going on? Well, I have this diary written by this fella who claims this happened on this day. But, I guess you write the truth in your diary mostly. Do you? Well, don't answer that.
Thank you. You don't want to know my diary.
When you write a diary entry, you select the truths you want to put into it, right? If it's all true,
that's
right?
Deep. That's getting in there.
So as I started drawing, I realized, well, for instance, he's coming from New Hampshire. He grew up in a generation that had not experienced slavery. His parents' generation had seen a Henniker, New Hampshire that had enslaved people in it. There were enslaved people in Henniker since before the town was started. And yet he was born in 1841, just 5 years after the last African-American Revolutionary War vet in Henniker died, as far as I can tell from the dates. So he grew up in a town that was really homogenized relative to what Henniker looked like in the late 1700s, early 1800s. He had no experience, no firsthand experience of slavery. He didn't get into serving in the Union Army with any kind, that I can tell, any kind of politics around slavery. So he's in the South, marching through Virginia, and he's encountering the realities of slavery for the first time. And as far as I can tell, it goes right over his head, and he's just like, "Oh, look at this landscape! Oh,
Seriously?
look at these people in their shabby shacks," you know. And he doesn't.
Wow.
He even uses, sadly, he uses enslaved people almost as comic relief in the way he tells his story. And so I got 200 pages into this book, and I'm like, "Oh, this is challenging actually, because I want to follow this character. He's the main character." And yet there's more, I know there's more to his story. And so, you know, I drew it sensitively. I tried to show that aspect of it. But I got done with the book and I was like, oh, there's so much more to this story than just what one person puts in their diary. Because if I mention you in my diary, I'm not going to go into your whole life story. I'm not going to go into your background, and it won't be your story the way you want to tell it. Right? And if I'm writing home to my folks and, you know, telling them the story of what I'm up to, I might not even mention you at all. And they might not even be aware when you read the letter or the diary that other people are there in that scene. But I'm aware of it because I'm drawing the characters, and then all around them, what am I going to draw? Right? So I can do the research. I can find photos, paintings, drawings of these scenes that he describes, and I can figure out what they look like, and I can cartoon them. But there's other people in those scenes, and they have a different perspective on those scenes. So when I got done with the book, I thought, you know, if I do any more of this, I'm going to have to do it with multiple storytellers. I'm going to have to do it with multiple perspectives just to get a sense of what's going on, because one person never knows the whole story.
That's crazy.
That was a great lesson to learn, and it only took me 350 pages and 4 years of drawing to figure it out, you know.
As you go through your subjects, do you self-filter? Are there areas you won't go into? Maybe they're just too dark or too... Oh, hang on.
Every time the ads come up, yes, I have to stop.
Oh, and we're going into the D block. I would love for you to play your banjo. I know you. I would love to hear it. Okay. You're listening to NH Unscripted. Yeah, a lot of good loving taking place here. I'm your young rascals like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the Gong Show like digs of the WKXL studios in Canton. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. I am hypnotized by today's topic. Marek Bennett's in the house. We will be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted. My gosh, this is the place where kicks just keep getting harder to find. I'm your Paul Revere and the Riders Like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Honeymooner Like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your Sony Walkmans. 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. Where should you need a friend at 2 or 3 in the morning, you can go on out there while you're having your milk and cookies. Go out to the archives. This archives of this tremendous, what should be award-winning show, plus all the other great programs that take place out here. Or, hey, there's also a button where you can listen live. We do stream our stuff out there. This show comes to you every Wednesday and Friday morning at 9 a.m., and then we repeat it every Wednesday and Friday evening at 8 p.m. Yeah. I don't want to take up any more time. Marek, we were talking about stories and weaving them in here. I'm going to let you kind of go with that and then do your own thing here because I'm fascinated.
Oh, well, the whole point is taking a primary source.
Yes.
Right? Taking a diary or a letter of someone who was an eyewitness to some event or some piece of history. In my case, the Civil War. I decided I wanted to focus on New Hampshire residents in the Civil War, who, it turns out, wrote a lot of letters home, wrote diaries, wrote journals, wrote accounts about their experiences. And then I take that and I draw as simply as possible along with that. Like we said earlier, stick figures are allowed, and any other details that are necessary for getting the story across. And then that leads to the challenge of, all right, so you said you marched along a road in a specific place. What were you seeing if you didn't describe it in words? Even if you did describe it in words, you left something out. So then a second level of research I do once I have the letters and the diaries is I go find photographs, or I go find paintings or sketchbooks or visual primary sources of people who were there. And it turns out an event like the U.S. Civil War, there were a lot of people who wrote a lot of accounts, and there were even people whose job it was to record it visually accurately, right? Because all the major newspapers and magazines sent special correspondents, special artists who were basically embedded with the Union Army, and their job was to draw what they saw and send it back, and it would get printed in the paper. And if the paper came out and all the soldiers said it wasn't like that, they would get fired. And they get an artist in who could draw it accurately. So we can really rely on those sketchbooks to get a sense of each scene. So, for instance, when you look at the covers of my books, I try to base each cover on a photograph or on a sketch or on some artwork of the time. And when you flip through the books themselves, I always tell people all the words come out of written accounts, and a lot of the panels are just copied out of Winslow Homer paintings or Alfred Woad sketchbooks or Matthew Brady photographs, right? And when you combine those two, the written accounts and the visual accounts, with cartooning, we get the effect that you mentioned earlier, where you're like, oh, I just want to kind of look at this a little and page through it. And you could page through these graphic novels and look at each page for 1 or 2 seconds, and it would take you a couple minutes to read the whole book, and you basically get the story. Or you could pore over it and read it for hours in multiple sittings, and you get more of the story. It really supports a lot of readings.
Another avenue, for storytelling is music. Could you please? I don't want to end the episode without hearing your banjo. Music is so beautiful. And I reference titles throughout my history, but it does something. It touches us deeper than certain other things do. Please go ahead and tell us about this.
Well, I got into these period instruments from the Civil War era. I was playing with my band, the Hardtacks, with Woody Pringle and our friends. And we were doing Civil War history in music. And we started getting into the period instruments. So this is a fretless 1848 banjo. And it's when the folk instruments made on the plantations by enslaved people, these Afro-Caribbean folk instruments, kind of jumped into a commercialized form of the banjo. And they're still played in a West African style, Afro-Caribbean style. Just basically 2 fingers. So it's a lot like cartooning as music, because it's played very simply, but you get complicated ideas out of that simplicity. So my favorite New Hampshire group is the Hutchinson Family Singers, and they were kind of Freeman Colby's generation. They grew up in New Hampshire, but unlike him, they had a real emancipationist background in their family, real abolitionist background, and they would sing songs like Old Dan Tucker. They'd take a song like that and make it get off the tracks. So this is a New Hampshire song. Ho, the car, emancipation, rides majestic through our nation, bearing on its train the story, liberty, a nation's glory. Roll it along, roll it along, roll it along through the nation, freedom's car, emancipation. It's a much longer song, but that's a little taste of the music from the time. a banjo song that became a political song, advocating emancipation and abolition. They were singing that in, well, I guess around 1848, that this banjo dates to.
Wow.
And they were singing during the Civil War still. They could have crossed paths with folks like Freeman Colby.
Yeah.
And my job working on the books becomes how do I find those voices that I want to highlight now, whether it's Hutchinson songs, school teachers from New Hampshire, or crucially, other New Englanders and people from down south who had firsthand experience of enslavement and who had stories to tell in the Civil War. It turns out all our stories kind of intersect and all these threads weave together. If you can find enough threads, you can build up sort of a fabric of a story. So that's what I'm doing with the new book. Volume 4 is coming out. It'll be out by the beginning of next year. It's kickstarting right now, so you can pre-order it now. And it's based on about 8 or 9 letters that Freeman Colby wrote during the summer of 1864, and it weaves in a lot of other stories. So, for instance, like Freeman Colby was sent to get supplies in in Port Royal, Virginia. He had to go 11 miles with a wagon train and bring back enough food for, 100,000 men in the army. He wasn't alone, right? He's writing, he says, this is what I did, but that's the fiction of the letter, that it's like, oh, he's off doing
and there's that world that appears out of that.
Right. I'm sorry, it was a 30-mile trip. The wagon train was 11 miles.
Oh, my God.
So that's how you know he wasn't alone. There were a lot of people driving those wagons. So I knew from another project that there was a New Englander, Alec Turner, who lived in Grafton, Vermont in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He was enslaved in Virginia in the 1840s to the 1860s. In fact, he grew up in Port Royal, where Freeman Colby was coincidentally sent to get supplies. Not coincidentally, because that's where the boats could come in, right? So like it's all the water travels to the same point. All the stories intersect. So he's in volume 4 telling the story about Port Royal. And Freeman Colby doesn't mention any details, but he pops in for 10 or 12 pages and explains to us what it was like growing up enslaved in Port Royal and how he led the Union Army back to liberate the plantation that he was enslaved at. And if I didn't do that extra research and learn those other stories, we just have Freeman Colby taking a wagon train and going back to camp, right? But if you look for those other stories, whose stories aren't being told, whose stories are maybe a little hidden or lost, and how do we bring those out and make them visible to know who's really here?
I would be doing you a huge injustice if I don't ask this next question. Are you available for speaking can people contact you to have you come out and like talk to students and lecture? Or
oh yeah, sure.
You are. And how do they get in touch with you?
My website's best.
Okay.
You can contact me through the website. I spend a good part of the year, I go around and visit schools.
You do?
Yep. And it's that effect when people look at this artwork, they say, oh, I could do that. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, if you get a room full of 20 young people who say, oh, I could do that, and you give them pencils and paper, it turns out they can do it.
That is so encouraging. Oh, my God, I'm so glad you said that. I didn't mean to explode.
It inspires me, and it keeps me going, because I learn so much from them. Yeah.
All right. Man, it breaks my heart to have to stop. All right. You are listening to NH Unscripted, where only the strong survive. I am your Jerry Butler-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the not-so-overly ostentatious digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. Little nod to Norm Nathan. You may have Google that name. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. MarekBennett.com. I want you to go out there and just visit the site. Marek, thank you for being here today.
Thanks a lot. It was fun to talk with you.
Gosh, thank you.